Thanks so much for joining us for Impact State of Mind. My name is John Paul Parmigiani. I'm co-founder and CEO of Impact Hub New York Metropolitan Area. Impact Hub New York Metropolitan Area is a nonprofit supporting entrepreneurs and change makers through programs designed to help impactful ideas take off. We work across the New York metropolitan area broadly with focus areas in Manhattan, Queens, Newark, and Morristown, New Jersey. Impact Hub is a global association of more than 100 hubs in more than 50 countries around the world. Impact State of Mind is a virtual series that's created to support the social innovation ecosystem during the COVID-19 crisis. Thanks so much for joining for today's session, which is Data Has Never Been So Sexy. We know that's true. With Gary Mann, who is CEO of Jasfel Analytics. So I'll be passing it over now to my co-founder, Karen Brown Stovell, who will lead the discussion. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hi, Gary. How are you today?
Hi, Karen. I'm doing very well. I'm dressed comfortably, so hopefully I'm not dressed down too much, but I'm doing fantastic.
Good. Well, you have your, it's always good to brand. So that's perfectly fine. I just want to thank you for allowing us to take a little bit of your time today and talk about data. And it seems to be now, I don't know what's going on. Wait, give me 1 second here. It seems now that data is the word of the day these days. Prior to, I know you and I have had many conversations about data, and it seems now that we've gone through we're going through the pandemic, the data seems to be the key word of the day. And now that's why when we were saying it's sexy now, because before when we would talk about data with people, their sort of eyes would roll back and it's sort of bits and bytes. That's all they thought about, like, you know. But now that we've realized that we can use data, how data is really used in common terms to basically save lives, I think people are getting it now. And so a couple of the notes I put down were, data can be used to talk about the what, the when, the where, the how, and the who, for anything and everything as it relates to your business, to one's business, I should say. So if you would, we'll just jump right in because, you know, these are just short conversations. Tell us a little bit about Jasfel and, you know, of course we have your slide up here, but in your own words, tell us about Jasfel, the kinds of work you're doing, kinds of customers, clients that you're working on, and give us a little taste of what you're doing there, especially during this pandemic, how it's been working.
Sure. So first of all, would like to thank you for having me on. Jasfel Analytics is really the genesis of work that I've been doing over the last 25 plus years in helping organizations use data to drive their decision making, to drive growth in revenue, as well as to drive reduction in costs. Or to improve efficiencies. I started Jasfel Analytics about 2 years ago with that thought in mind, but instead of going after the normal multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies that I was familiar with dealing with, I wanted to target medium and small-size businesses. I wanted to give them the opportunity to take advantage of some of the 3-4 decades plus data analytics work that the multinationals have been doing. And so here we are today, almost 2.5 years later with Jasfel Analytics, and I find myself helping small to medium-sized organizations, whether they be nonprofit organizations, such as Forward Ever and others, to healthcare facilities, like the Federally Qualified Healthcare Center. So I'm doing a lot of work around helping these organizations capture data that can impact their business moving forward. So
when you say data, if I can interrupt, we're talking really information, right? Capturing, that's another word, capturing information to inform their business decisions.
So that's correct. I'm sorry, Karen. And so that's correct. And so in real terms, it's turning data into valuable information that can be used by organizations to drive their business, improve efficiencies, and reduce costs.
So for example, one of the things I was thinking about this morning, let's talk about retail sales, for example. We have a lot of businesses, especially here in New Jersey. We're here in Newark, New Jersey. We're going through a reopening process, application process, and then inspections after that, and then businesses will be reopening. And so many of them are trying to figure out how to reimagine their business, how to pivot, how to take all of what we've been going through and use that to inform how they'll move forward. Give me an example of like how a small retail business or, could use data, use information to inform their business.
So that's a great question. So the first thing that I would do is I would say that a lot of small businesses already have a wealth of data in place. They've got it stored in spreadsheets, text files, things of that nature. One good thing that I would suggest a small business to do is to go back, take a look at that data and analyze who their top customers are. Who are the ones that are, visiting their facility, 3 times or more, and target them for the new economy that's going to come out of this pandemic. Those are more than likely the first customers that will come back. That would, by doing so, that would at least get you to developing a cash flow. And then you can start looking at other data points like traffic data, believe it or not, pedestrian traffic data or cellular traffic data, to see if there is a pattern of people actually coming back to your particular area. It's very possible that, you're going to see less traffic, right? In front of your storefront. So where are those people going? You want to start possibly targeting them in terms of advertising in those areas. Or things of that nature. Maybe you put somebody out on the street handing out flyers, as an example, in those high traffic areas.
Well, how about even businesses that may not have a brick and mortar, if you will? Many people are working from home virtually still, and they may be service-oriented businesses that, they're looking like yourself, right? You're not necessarily in a brick and mortar right now, but let's just this pen or anything. And I want to say, who are my customers? Who are buying pens? Where are they buying them from? Who is my competition? What are they doing differently? Those kinds of things that could help drive decision-making. Those are kinds of things that you offer as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, for folks that are looking to find that information, it's a little more involved, but definitely doable. So as an example, you talked about who are my competitors, where are people shopping? Believe it or not, a lot of this information is readily available on the web. And so what I've done with a number of my customers is I've pretty much, taken a look at the type of information that they are looking to obtain. And what I would usually do is something called scraping the web, right? So I would actually create a small program to go out there and collect that information from multiple data points, multiple websites that exist, bring that information into, what we call a data set, which is, think about it as a big file cabinet. I would clean up that data for them to make it look sense, and then help them visualize that data so that they can see specific patterns or trends in the data that could help them determine, how they should proceed with their business.
So I'll speak a little, and that is invaluable. I'll speak for my leading a nonprofit here in Newark, New Jersey, and a shopping program. So we're trying to drive people to shop in Newark. Obviously boost our local economy, increase our ratables, increase the multiplier effect so that the money stays in our local economy longer. These are all things that build good, sustainable communities. And so what we're looking for was where we want to make sure that we get as many people in our program as we can, people that are commuters, that live here. And then we want to attract the types of businesses that they would like to shop at for lunch, for coffee, whatever. So can you talk a little bit about like some of the stuff that we've been able to do and the numbers that come out of that, right? Like you could drill down, like we have Panasonic or Public Service and Electric and Gas. They have huge employee bases here, or at least they used to at one point, right? And I know many of them are coming back. Tell us a little bit about how you were able to help us target those, the types of places and help the program along.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, Karen. So, in one of the exercises that, we've done together, we've done a couple of things. The first thing is that you want to understand what the earning power is for the community that you're trying to serve. What's the earning power and where they are? So the first thing that we did was we took a look at census data, believe it or not, which is free of charge, to see where certain demographics were located. What do I mean by certain demographics? Where are the commuters coming from? Where do they live? What is the earning power within a given community? We then began to look at the number of stores or retail stores or actually businesses in Newark. We did that through taking a look at or pulling information from Google Analytics. And then we began to marry that information together to take a look at, patterns or trends that existed between businesses currently located in Newark, as well as commuters and as well as residents that were living in Newark. That gave us a better picture, if you will, of the business community within Newark, as well as the residents and commuters.
Yeah, and then you were able to even say, for example, because PSE&G said, they came to us and said, we really want our employees to shop locally. They started tying many corporations as well as, associations are really beginning to tie local spending to, part of their vision and their mission and their purpose, because they want to give back, right? And so what happened was PSE&G came and they said, we want to shop, we want to be a part of this. So what we were able to do was to say within a quarter-mile radius, tell us all the kinds of that they might want to go to for lunch, that they have, these people go to for lunch, and let's target those businesses. And it worked out. So this is what I'm trying to really frame the picture, so that it's like you look at data in a way of how do we, in the best case scenario, how do I make my business work the best way, and if I can have every question answered.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Karen, I think you summed that up better than I did, because we've done so many projects together. I actually forgot about that particular one. I've got another instance, though, that might be helpful to the folks on the Zoom call as well. So I've got a very good friend. She's considered to be the dog whisperer of New Jersey. And we just happened to be sitting around, talking about her business, because she was trying to figure out, who should I really be marketing to? Where am I going to find my those customers that basically can afford me? And what came out in the conversation is she said, hey, I do interviews before I actually bring on someone as a client. She says, so I asked her, I said, well, how many of those do you have? She said, I have about 10,000 that I've conducted, over the years that I've been in business. And I kind of looked at her and said, well, have you taken a look at the characteristics of that data? That's like a gold mine for you. And she said, no, I hadn't. Make a long story short, I said, well, give me the data. Let me take a look at it. Let me see if I can spot trends. And what we started finding were patterns of those customers or prospects that were more likely to buy her services after the initial conversation. As an example, we found out that people that were familiar with the Dog Whisperer television show, as an example, were 90% likely to buy her services, as opposed to those that had never heard about it. That was a revelation. So now,
what business was this?
She is a dog trainer. She's basically a dog trainer. Okay. But she was able, just from that one observation, target customers that have heard about the Dog Whisperer program, as opposed to doing a generic blast. It saved her money. She actually increased her win rate once that very small piece of data was given to her. And that was just one example.
And that was, you're focusing on, because I lost a little bit, yep. But you're saying focusing on people that were familiar with her, someone that had been referred. So,
familiar with a famous program where that features a dog trainer.
Oh, got it.
Right.
Talk a little. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that was one of the questions that she was asking during her surveys.
Oh, okay. But
right.
So you were able to narrow that down. Talk a little bit about, because we're going to take another 2 minutes and then we'll jump in and answer some questions about you were working with before the pandemic. Ironically, one of your top clients, I know you shared, was the federally qualified health centers in somewhere in New York. We don't have to talk about which one specifically, but talk about what you were finding out and why they had hired you in the first place.
Sure. That's an interesting, intriguing client. So, federally qualified healthcare center basically is a small hospital without beds. They had tons of data throughout their organization, but the reason why they brought me and one of my partners in is because they were having problems with transfers out, patients transferring out of their facility. They were basically losing about 105 patients on average every month that were transferring to a competitor, and they really didn't have any clue why. Once we landed in there, we took a look at the data that they had available to them. We began to do analysis against that data, couple that data or blend it or combine it with additional data that we found from outside sources. And we discovered reasons why folks were actually transferring out of their facility. It boiled down to the way that they were being treated by doctors, long wait times, and canceled appointments. Data that they actually had already had, they just didn't have a good understanding of how to put the data together to make sense of it. Within 5 months, we reduced their transfer rate by 67%.
That's huge.
It's huge.
That is huge. And was it you gave them that information, but then they had to go in and implement some new practice or strategy to deal with the problem, right?
That's absolutely right. But we were able to identify the problem for them. Together, we quickly put together a couple of remedies on how to fix the problem. And again, it reduced their transfer rate by 67%. As a matter of fact, I was sitting in a board meeting yesterday with this client, and we were going over the transfer numbers for May, and we compared year over year. They were down. They have reduced transfers by 83% year over year.
That's incredible. And so when you're talking about how much money we're talking about, just ballpark?
In their particular case, I haven't done it for the full time that we've been there. I did do it after 5 months when we reduced it by 67%. They had saved a total of $350,000.
My goodness. And so that brings us into our Q&A, because I want to make sure that people realize that it's not just about a corporation, if you will, but this is also, you work with small nonprofits as well. So your price point, your packaging is customized. It's not just for the big guys, but it's for us normally small size companies and micro enterprises as well. So I have a couple of questions. One of them is, how can we use data for prospecting economic opportunities in any area? This person was talking about a hemp company. What products will sell on a local, regional level to drive workforce development? Ideally, want to use data to determine the best product potential in a local, regional area.
So that's a great question. So data is going to come into play in a number of ways. Some that we could talk about now, and some that will be discovered along the process or along the way. The first thing that comes to mind for me is regional and local economic data that's available to you, understanding the demographics of the people that live within the area that you're attempting to serve. And what do I mean by demographic data? That's just basically census data, believe it or not. There's census data out there that can tell you, again, the characteristic of the people that live around you, but it can also tell you about the economic health of a region or a municipality. So that would be the first place that I would look. Then I probably would go and possibly scrape some of the websites that are out there on businesses, because you may need to know your competition. I mean,
yeah.
Those are things that are readily available, but need to be kind of gathered and cleaned and put into.
Yeah, because everyone may know, like you're saying, you can get it from Google or Census, but being able to pull it together to make sense of it and then determine how to use it to best move forward in your business is another whole story, right? Like we can all go to Google, but and look up something. Now we need to figure out what to do with it, do with that information. But in the case, what I'm thinking of this question, with you're getting to launch a hemp business, you maybe look and see what kinds of products people are buying in your area already.
That's right.
Right. Those kinds of things. Let me see another question. New nonprofit organization, Liberty State Park for All, is trying to gain support for remediation efforts in Liberty State Park. How can data be applied to projecting the impact of remediation at Liberty State Park?
And so, I probably have a couple of questions that I would ask about that. But when I think of Liberty State Park and remediation, so there could be remediation inside the park, and then there could be remediation outside the park. The surrounding neighborhoods. Probably the first thing that I would look at is local city data on lots. So believe it or not, you can go out there and find there's free information on what lots exist around Lincoln Park, which ones are vacant lots, which ones are not. Who are the owners of those lots?
Yeah.
What are the costs, things of that nature. So you can begin to at least formulate a picture of how you should attack this thing. So
exactly. So one of the things they were saying was that this is a remediation. It's adjacent to the park, and it was talking about. I'm just sort of just peeking at it. Excuse me. It says, we know the areas for remediation and intended plans, like the remediation will now be more inclusive for more people to use the park. And then of course the health implications that were there prior to. So how can you, being able to package all of that to say that this is their impact? I'm thinking if you remediate this area, then there's more access, and you could really build it out depending upon what your goal and your vision is as an organization.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And to that point, Karen, the other thing that is a simple thing to do in terms of data collection that many folks sort of overlook is doing a survey. And what's beautiful about, the environment today is that you can actually do an electronic survey or create an electronic survey via something like SurveyMonkey, and send that out specifically to to a targeted area. So you could actually create the SurveyMonkey. As a matter of fact, I've got my social media person doing this right now for me in the city of Newark, where I'm asking a single question to Newarkers. You can, stick that out on Facebook. You can stick it out on Instagram, or you could just get a tablet and walk from place to place, house to house, or the most popular spots, and collect data right there on the spot. And then do some analysis of that data. And I think that is one of the biggest and simplest ways to collect data that folks, sometimes miss, right? Because this particular organization, they probably know the type of impact that they would like to have on that remediation, so they could ask a question specifically about that.
Yeah, well, see, right now, for me, since I lead a nonprofit, my first question is, what kind of impact do you want to have on that community? What are the health disparities right now in those communities where there's contamination? And if we remediate those areas and we're opening it up and you're creating places for kids to play and community development, now you're talking about health impacts improving, people using outdoor space more, community. These are some of the things that could be measured that pretty much would not be able to be measured. And then now you have children that are outside instead of inside in that area. So
and just, I'm going to add one more thing to this, and we probably could talk on for hours about this, but the census data is going to be key there as well. I mean, the more you talk, the more I'm thinking about what data points you can collect. You can actually get accurate census data on the exact neighborhoods that are around Lincoln Park, and you could find things out like how many people have diabetes in that area, how many people are there under 18 years of age, how many people are over 60 years of age. That's all information that's readily available. How many people work, how many people are retired. All of that information is there.
right.
If you take a look at the census, there are over 26,000 pieces of data that are collected per area in this country. Extremely valuable.
Wow. Well, we are at 1:29, and this was a quick, short, little burst of a conversation. But we had a bunch of people in, and I hope that, can we put Gary's information back up for those that might want to have a conversation, a consultation with you about how you could possibly help them with their business. Just sort of reimagine as we move forward, we're looking at a different way of doing business. And I think a lot of people may be interested in at least having a conversation about how they can reimagine their business post-COVID.
Absolutely. I'm always open.
Any last words?
I was going to say, I'm always open. Initial conversation is free from my perspective. I'd welcome having a conversation and possibly helping folks with using data to drive their decisions.
Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful weekend. And in celebration, this conversation we had planned, but we moved it to this time in celebration of Juneteenth. And so we don't necessarily say Happy Juneteenth, but we are celebrating and honoring this conversation on this day in celebration of the many strides we've made since. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, take care.